All right, I'm Jim Sutherland. I'm the sexton at St. Stephen in the Fields, and my job is the church's physical property rather than as spiritual entity. I look after the physical part of the church. The traditional role of the sexton is usually described as ring the bell and dig the graves, but we don't have a graveyard. I do ring the bell though. It's got a nice tone. I probably got the neighborhood really alarmed. However, yeah. Well, we'd be sunk if we had to depend on the size of our congregation and the weddings and funerals of that congregation to keep us open. It just wouldn't happen. But there's lots of other things in life besides those two. I mean, there's just any method of lifting the spirits has got to be something that the church should be interested in.
For what we want to do. The church is completely open to anything we want to do. They set no boundaries on us, which is really nice, especially because it is a church.
Let's face it, if we don't open the doors for that to earn some money, then we're not going to survive, not as a parish. And that sort of bothers me.
Everybody is welcome because everyone brings some gift, not necessarily money or that kind of thing, but themselves is the gift they bring.
Those who take risks succeed. Those who are overly cautious fail. That's the heart of the message. Those who take risks succeed. And that's an important message to the church. And so, at times where we're tempted to be very conservative and cautious to preserve the status quo, we're not really what Jesus is. Jesus was all for taking risks. In bad times, full steam ahead.
It was Colonel Denison's church. Colonel Denison had the land grant for this area. This was all his farm. And he was a really interesting Victorian gentleman who as a gift, he gave that building to the congregation. And it was basically a gift to his farm workers, I believe. That was the parish, the people who worked on Denison's farm. And the church was always a free church. You never had to buy your pew space, unlike a lot of Anglican churches. So it was egalitarian from the get-go. Part of that egalitarianism is accepting everybody. You know, if you make it through the doors, you're in church and you're welcome. And when they opened this, people came from miles and miles and miles to see this weird building because it was completely out of whack with how Toronto built churches. Up until this church was built, churches in Toronto were yellow brick and Georgian. That was it. And Fuller comes along and builds this polychromatic neo-Gothic. What? And it sort of looked like an English country church. course, you know, it was way out in the field, so a country church was certainly appropriate. And it was actually, I think, a pretty good design. That whole building was designed to lift your spirits, to give you at least an intimation of something beyond whatever your weekly woes were. It struck me that there was something to be gained from a place that wasn't going to change, that was just, it was going to be there. That hell or high water, St. Stephen's was going to be open for service on Sunday. And of course that sort of, I was somewhat wrong about that. Because it wasn't very long after I started attending here, only 3 or 4 years, that the diocese came to the notion that maybe we should pack it in. That it was way too big for us, way too grand for us, and we couldn't possibly sustain it. And in many ways, they're absolutely right. You know, this is way beyond us to keep this place afloat. So this neighborhood would have been more or less the parish of St. Stephen's. The sort of geographic area where the congregation was supposed to come from. You weren't really supposed to cross parish boundaries, as I understand it, that you went to the church that was in your area.
Okay.
And it's a sort of relatively recent phenomena that we only have 1 or 2 members of the congregation that actually live within the boundaries of the parish. And I'd say probably less than half a dozen live within the boundaries of the city of Toronto. You know, part of the Kensington thing is to get landed, get established, and move on. And this was moving on. So now instead of seating 900, we seat 160. And it'd be a wonderful day if we had 160 into service. This doesn't happen. We have had over 200 in here for a funeral, but it's not, well, be nice to see it full, but it ain't. So it goes. I have no idea how to make more people come here. I don't know. And it doesn't really surprise me that I don't know, because I don't think anybody else knows either. It's just, things have changed.
The church, as you can see now, is half what it used to be. And this is because it's an old structure. And the numbers also dwindled. In the past, you had, on some occasions, standing room only. Today you can fire a cannon through it and hardly hit anyone.
When I first came here, it was huge. And of course, you know, this wasn't the church at this time. It was all pushed out, and there were Sundays, Christmas and Easter, where the place would be totally filled.
Before 1985, if you walked in this door and stood here, you would have seen pews all the way to the wall, and all the way to the wall, and all the way up to the sanctuary. And the pews back here would have been on 3-inch risers, so that you could see what was happening up in the sanctuary. But you would have been able to hear what was going on, thanks to the design of the sanctuary. And now, of course, well, it's something else altogether. We had 99 people in for breakfast on Sunday, and I think they had 75, 80 people in for dinner last night. And there'll be another 100-odd through on Saturday coming, and the same again on Sunday, and so on. In fact, all in all, I suspect that this church has served a fair number of meals over the years. Meals come and go. I mean, you eat one, you know, before you know it, you want another one. But it is nice to think that some meals happened here that were important. You know, that people from every nation come through our doors for breakfast. It's not, they don't necessarily come to service. In fact, they don't, but they do come for the other things that we provide. And I think that's really important, to offer something back to the community, because the community has helped us stay there all this time too. If we didn't have any purpose or sense of being here, we would have disappeared.
The parish has long had this kind of ministry of providing food resources to people in need, no questions asked. That is, they don't have to explain why they're here, in any way justify being here if they show up.
It sure needs to be done. And nobody shows up in the morning for a meal that doesn't matter. It requires, well, it just indicates you really want to get something to eat. Show up here at this hour.
Congregation at the present time is small, and they don't have the best personal resources, and so by renting the space for other activities like weddings and parties and that kind of thing, that produces the income that enables us to both keep the building repaired and provide these kind of ministries. So we rent in order that we can continue the ministry.
We aren't sort of sticklers for protocol. That's a luxury you really can't afford these days. I'm sure there are church people who would be horrified at this notion that you know, we should use our church for such a secular purpose. On the other hand, we're here, we're open. We're serving the community meals. I mean, you know, it all goes around. Yeah, it comes in one door and goes out the other. You know, it goes out in the form of meals in people's bellies. It sort of goes around.
And now, friends and family, for the very first time, I would like to introduce to you Tresor and Stephen, now partners in marriage. Congratulations to them.
Nice and loud.
I love it. I've never been to such an exciting wedding before. I think it's fabulous.
What do you think of the church here?
The church is different. It's special. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I love it.
Oh, the church is great. I didn't know what to expect, and I love Gothic. I really always did. And this little church is friendly and makes it more together.
I was amazed to see the drum set in the middle of the altar while they were getting married. that was something to see.
And it's really funny because it's actually against my religion, well, my parents' religion when I was growing up, but we don't celebrate Halloween. Hence the reason why I'm not in costume.
So what would your parents think of having a wedding and Halloween?
Blasphemy.
Yeah, they'd like to have Halloween, and yeah, okay, not necessarily the first choice for a wedding date, but at least not mine. But I'm not the one getting married, so you know, all right. And a rental is a rental. I mean, that's so many more meals at the door. It's good. It's heating the building and, you know, paying our water bill.
We can't really remember drinking beer in the church before the service.
I've never done that.
Before this. Or during.
You're not going to get really worried when you have a beer in church. Right? Have you seen the stained glass in the center of our sanctuary? It's Christ holding a large jug of wine. The congregation isn't really nervous or upset about what use the building could be put to, as long as we don't desecrate it or do something profoundly ridiculous. Then I really don't think it matters.
The Creator gave us the ability to sing and dance, and I don't think that was done lightly, and we should appreciate it. It would be foolish to think that we shouldn't do that, you know. In fact, I'd be very surprised if Christ himself didn't sing and dance from time to time when he was a younger man.
Literally saw the sign outside that said Rent St. Stephen's, and I thought, I'm going to be doing a show. I wonder if I could afford that. And that was that. You know, it's perfect. I look at this space as being a part of what I do, and so it is almost as much a part of what I do as my studio, where I'm every day of the week almost, you know. So it's, though I don't come here every day, it is that much a part of what I do, and it's sort of my thing to be at home in.
This was a place where really important events in people's lives happened. And they may not have been, you know, every Sunday worshipers and devout members, but still it was their community church, and was where they met their neighbors, you know, where they sat shoulder to shoulder with some other member of the community, and that's something that we don't get to do very often anymore.
The performers walk in and they feel like their art is elevated to a certain level before they've even started. So it makes you feel like all the work you've put into your pieces, all the work that you've done training, it makes you feel like it's paid off because you are in this glorious surrounding.
I'm glad that we're open to that, you know, that we aren't afraid of that kind of thing. And why should we be?
To be fully alive as human beings, you must take some risks in life. And he's not just talking about on planet. He's talking about how we live our life. If we spend our whole life very cautiously, not doing anything risky, we will miss out on life.
If we lost the ability to serve the community a meal or serve them with a space to perform their art, then we don't work. And if we don't hold service here, but use it merely as another venue, then I don't think it works either. It works because it's both. It's all of it. It's the entire spectrum of what humans get up to.